your favorite Canadian IMG. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Dr. Toby. We are so happy and glad you could join us this morning. So to our viewers, welcome again to IMG Chronicles with Dr. Shayee. In Canada is a holiday morning. So this is 8 a.m. on Victoria Day, and Dr. Toby has graciously joined me, instead of spending it in bed after a long weekend of call. And vice versa here, but we decide to give of our time to support you on your journey. So once again, welcome Dr. Toby Okeke to IMG Chronicles.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is a blog where I've shared my journey and I'm sharing the journey of others. We're all IMGs, we're all international medical graduates, sharing our journeys and stories with the hope of making it shorter for others and encouraging others. So that's why we do what we do. And for all new subscribers, welcome to the family of new IMGs in Canada. And we are happy our community is growing as more and more doctors get integrated into working in the healthcare system in Canada. So with that, I would introduce my guest, a very good friend. I'm so excited to have him join me here today. This is Dr. Toby Okeke.
Thank you.
Dr. Toby is joining us. He likes to call Dr. Toby. But I won't be surprised if his patients have started speaking Igbo already. So Dr. Toby is joining us from Hawkesbury, Nova Scotia, and that is 3 hours ahead of me. I am on Mountain Time. And what time are you on, Dr. Toby?
Atlantic time, or you would say Eastern. Okay, Atlantic time, rather.
Atlantic time, because Eastern is 2 hours away. Anyways, don't bother your head about it if you're not in Canada yet, because even I, who's lived here for 6-7 years, I still try to wrap my head around the different time zones. So let's jump right in. So today we are talking about practice ready assessment in Nova Scotia. It's been long overdue. We did the first one in this series last year, talking about Saskatchewan, and this is the second one. And Dr. Toby, who is practicing there, is the best person to tell us all about this firsthand information. So send your questions to the email afterwards, and let's hear from Dr. Toby. Over to you, Dr. Toby. Tell us a little bit about you.
So, yeah, like she said, you could call me, the full name is Toby Okeke. My patients will call me Dr. Okeke, but I guess Dr. Toby works for me, for those who are not my patients. So I would say about 1 full year in practice, slightly more than 1 full year in practice in Nova Scotia. I currently live in Port Hawkesbury. That is one of the rural areas in Nova Scotia. It is within what they call the Cape Breton region. If you've ever traveled to Nova Scotia, that would be the area that surrounds, that's close to the Atlantic. It has beautiful beaches, wonderful, well, I wouldn't say resort, but if you're looking for a cottage or somewhere to build a retirement home, this is the place to be. When I say beaches, I'm not underestimating. Within the place where you could count like, say, 10 to 15. So you have people who come, even fly in from US just to come to hang out in the beaches around here. So,
and if I'm not, that sounds so futuristic. Like, I can't wait to visit you over there. But if I'm not mistaken, isn't that the province where, in the wake of the 9/11 attacks, planes who were going to the US were diverted to that province? Do
Well,
you know
I'm
that?
not particular. I can't remember.
Yeah, so I think so it's either Nova Scotia or Newfoundland, but with what you're describing, I think is
Yeah.
your province. And
Okay.
and the people opened their doors and all the planes. I can't remember the scores of planes who were going into the US that day were diverted to that province. They opened their doors, they were so hospitable. People were there for 48 hours, and they just opened their hall and fed people, and some few beautiful stories 20 years later came out. There was a couple that actually met in the plane there, and then they got married. They're an older couple. I think they're in their 70s now. I saw the last year when it was 20 years post 9/11, I saw that advert. So I know for sure you people are
Yeah.
hospitable.
So I think one of the things to remember is that
Mm-hmm.
this area, the demographic is more of the elderly and retired, right? And the thing about the Cape Breton people, when they leave and go out to places like Ontario, Alberta, they always come back. When I mean
Yeah.
they always come back, they always come back when they're older. They suddenly remember, oh, I have family over there. Okay, let's
No,
move back.
you
So
know, even before they're older, two of the residents in my cohort actually
yeah,
went back home. One of
okay,
them is in the army, and she
okay,
chose to go back to she's a major in the army, and she went back to her hometown and set up a practice. And the other identifies as indigenous, and he actually went back and he set up a practice for his people
no,
over there. So there must be something great about the region, you know.
yeah.
So now we are beginning to sound like adverts for
Well,
move
the truth
to.
about it, if you want a place where you can see the ocean surrounding you with a massive expanse of land, lots of space to do whatever you want to do, this is the place to be.
I love my mountains, Toby. I love the Rocky Mountains. I'll visit. Who knows? Maybe I'll retire there.
Okay.
Okay, so thank
Yeah.
you, thank you, thank you, Toby. Thanks for that introduction to your beautiful province. So, like I said, we're talking today about practice ready assessment in the province of Nova Scotia. So, Dr. Toby, just tell us some context. How long were you in this country before you moved to Nova Scotia?
So I believe me and my family landed in 2013.
Okay.
And though I was going back and forth, I did go back and forth for quite a bit before
Mm-hmm.
I finally came fully on ground. So within that time frame, I was also taking my exams. When we started back in 2013, they still had a couple of exams to take there with the
Okay.
EE, the English, and all that. So I would say I fully came on ground about 2017.
Yeah.
And that's when the whole process started. I know once you come on ground, that's when your clock starts counting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Because in between, you're still going back and forth
yeah,
and you're maintaining your practicing license, right?
yes.
Yes.
So and that was the beauty about my own aspect. My time started counting from when I stopped going to practice. Okay, so
Yeah.
I am also aware that for some people they were able to get some during the COVID period, they were lucky to get some approvals to show that they were doing virtual care even while they were here in Canada. But I'm not sure if every province will accept that. I'm aware that a couple of people did get approval in some provinces that for a period of up to 6 or more months, they were able to do virtual care for their patients. And that counted as time for them working as doctors.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? Because all around the globe, it all offered, it changed the scope of medicine. It opened
Yeah.
up a bigger scope, for us as clinicians all around the globe. Because for almost a year, there was complete lockdown, no going in and coming out. So it's refreshing to hear that some of the colleges actually, recognize that and then use that against candidates. So Dr. Toby, I think that it would be nice at this point to tell us what the requirements are for the province of Nova Scotia. You just kind of mentioned the currency of practice right now. So for those who are listening who don't know what that means, so currency of practice just simply means that you have a valid practicing license as a physician, as a family physician, and you're practicing in your country. That's what that means.
Yeah.
A lot of you have asked me about other specialties like internal medicine, surgery, and practice ready assessment. So just for the records, I've said it before, I'm just going to say it again. We are talking about family medicine. As far as we know, as at right now, though it's very dynamic and the information changes, practice ready assessment in Canada right now is targeted towards recruiting family physicians to come work here in Canada. And these are family physicians who have done previous postgraduate training in their home country, for a specific amount of time. So that time varies province to province, which is why we're doing this series, provinces, right? We're not just doing a blanket series covering everybody. So back to you, Dr. Toby Okeke. Now that we explained what currency of practice means, can you just, itemize for us what your province is asking for?
Okay, so my process, I started that in 2019. So I might not have exact current information regarding what is required as of today. Okay. However, whatever I say will just be like a guideline. A lot of the information you can get on their website, and that is to go to the College of Family Physicians of Nova Scotia, and it will outline what is required. So important things with the process here is for you to meet an eligibility, you need to go through the College of Family Physicians first before you go through the practice ready, okay? And this is done through your family physician, your physician apply portal, okay? So 2 things they require. As of now, you require at least a pass in your QE1, right? Now, QE2 is no longer being discussed about now, so we'll leave that out of the way. Initially, during my own time, they also required a pass at least in your NACOSKI. I understand at some point last year they waived NACOSKI, but I think that will probably be back in play again now. So if not, you might probably need to correlate this information with current information on the website. So if NACOSKI is required, unlike other provinces, they don't require like one fantastic pass mark or one very high score. They require at least a pass, okay? Now, besides the NACOSKI, you also be required to have your English. Now, this one too has undergone a few changes. I am not sure they still require that now, but if they do, you'll be required to have a band 7 across the board in all the bands for your English IELTS. I understand that at some point they were requiring a different kind of English exam, or that they waived the IELTS completely. So like I say, please correlate that information. So English will be required. If you are getting the English, you require a minimum of band 7 in the listening, writing, the reading part, and then the speaking. You must have a minimum of 7, okay? So now, once you have all that in place, there is a requirement for your currency. She has talked to Dr. Shayee has already talked a bit about currency of practice. There is an amount of time in which your currency should be valid before you can apply. Previously, it was just within 3 months, but currently, your currency must be at least valid within 6 months of when you should be going for your assessment. We'll talk about the assessment later on. So we are still at the stage where you're doing an application to the college. So you must have a currency that is valid within 6 months. I will explain. If, for instance, the last time you practiced was in 2018, for instance, and you're applying today to the college, it means that you should still have at least 6 months left in your currency to be eligible. This 6 months kind of takes into cognizance the time it takes you to have your, to do your assessment, get the reports, be given a license, and then be called to be given an actual license to be practiced. So to practice, so you should actually still be in current. You should still be current as of the day you start practicing here. In our own time, that was when COVID started, right? So there were a few exceptions made. I'm not sure those exceptions will still be in place now. So, and this change to 6 months is new. In my own time, it was about 3 months currency. So if your currency is currently about to run out, and you think that by the time you set your application in place, that it would have run out before you start your practice, I recommend you make arrangements to get that sorted before you apply. I guess this might not be the forum to talk about how to go renew your practice, so I'll just give things so you need to get that renewed and make it current within 6 months. So that part, once you have that part, they will still expect that when you should have independent practice. And this is independent practice after a postgraduate training. And the postgraduate training we refer to is, number one, your house job can be regarded as 1 year of postgraduate. In Nova Scotia, they require a total of 2 years. So 1 year is taken care of by your house job. Now, they don't really need you to have completed a formal training for that whole period. If you are able to provide documentation suggesting that you did rotation, covering the additional 1 year from a school recognized to do residency programs, right? They will accept that, but it has to go through your physician apply, right? So it has to be verified. So whatever document you're providing to the province has to be verified through your physician apply account. Because besides you saying I have it, you have to share those documents with the college. The college will review all these documents, find out if you meet the eligibility, and provide you with an eligibility letter. So when I say, basically, if you are finishing training, say yesterday, training in postgraduate, you must have at least a minimum of 3 years. I believe, if I'm correct, you must have a minimum of 3 years of independent practice post-training. So you cannot come off training and apply. If that is the case, they will have to look through, they'll have to send it to a board to decide if you meet that criteria. But I will suggest that if you are making such application, you should have independent practice. And the word when they say independent, they mean you are not being supervised, which is what would happen during a residency training. So you should have a minimum of 3 years. And remember, this is different from currency of practice, right? So if you have all that, submit your application. The college will review, and they are pretty quick with reviewing the documents. They will, once you have everything and you have shared it with the college, they will get back to you with an eligibility letter. When that happens, they will also be copying the practice ready assessment program with that same eligibility letter. They will reach out to you and another set of process will start. So we'll talk about that.
Wow, that was loaded. Nothing like hearing it directly from the horse's mouth. I'm just going to recap it for some people who are just, totally green to this whole process with the semantics where the buzzwords were thrown around. So the very first step, which we have talked about in previous videos, is registering with Physicians Apply. So your registrations are in order. You've done your exams. You've passed your exams. Dr. Toby mentioned your English and your MsPH, right? Now you're ready to go. So what's next? Then Dr. Toby said, you have to make sure you've got the recognized training, and he's explained what that means, as well as your currency of practice, right? And in addition to that, the very last thing Dr. Toby has said is that you have to have independent practice of at least 3 years post your graduation. So I will make it visual. You graduated in 2010. You did a housemanship. Let's say you graduated from a country where we do housemanship, like the UK, Nigeria, and many other countries. So in Nigeria, the housemanship is 1 year. So let's say you have your 1 year of housemanship. And then let's say you have your 1 year of return of service to government, like they do back in Nigeria. That doesn't count. That is not a formal training. So now we're now talking of at least 1 year in a training program, so let's say you were in family medicine residency, or you were in an institution where you were working as a medical officer, but you had the opportunity to rotate through training, and you go through that training for at least another 1 year. So that counts. And then you now work independently with no supervisor for a minimum of 3 years. Now, at that point, you can package your papers and apply to Nova Scotia. Did I get that correct?
Correct.
All right. And then when you apply, they review it, you get an eligibility letter, which says, we'll look through this person's documents. This person fulfills our criteria. Now let's talk about next steps in how to give this person a license to practice in this place. Good. Over to you.
Okay, great. So once you have been referred to the practice ready, it's like a different group of people that have been tasked with the job to assess people like us, that's people who are coming for independent practice. So the practice ready assessment is called the PRA. So you hear me say that frequently. So now what they're going to do is they will set up an interview for you. You will fill out some documents as well. And don't forget these documents, you need to be very precise when you're filling any information. Remember, whatever you put out there, you cannot take it back. So you must be very careful about what information you put out. I'll give you an example. You're saying, I worked in such a place and you don't have any proof of where you worked. Please don't do things you cannot prove. If you have worked in a place and you're not sure that you have a supervisor there who can write a reference for you, be sure at some point you're going to be required to provide a reference from all the places you have worked. So the point I'm just making is this is where you need to be very careful, because they will ask you for your scope of practice. They will ask you for a detailed CV of where you have worked. Now, when all this is done, they will call you for a formal interview. And just for the records, at some point when you guys are called for that interview, I have told Dr. Shayee, you are welcome to reach out to me and I'll be of some help to guide you on what to expect for the interview, okay? I'm not saying I'll give you answers, but I'm just saying I'll guide you, okay? So anyway, when you have the interview, don't forget, because this program is now highly sought after, you are not the only one applying for this. So there are many more people. They are going to rank you, right? They're going to rank you based on the scores in your exams, based on the scores in your interview. Now, when they rank you, they will now decide, do we give this person a chance to go and write an exam called the Therapeutic Decision-Making Exam? We abbreviate it as TDM. It's a clinical-based pharmacology exam, which you must pass to be able to go forward from there. So if they find you worthy after the interview, they will provide you documentation and proof to register for the exam and write it. So remember, the exam also has a pass score. You must prepare for it. People do fail it. And once you pass that, you will be ranked among those to be scheduled for an assessment. So don't forget the TDM scores also is part of the ranking for you. They will put that as part of ranking. So if you have 20 persons who are coming in for, say, 5 spots, you can imagine they need to find a way of eliminating people.
Yeah.
So it will be ranked based on how you present yourself, what your CV looks like. So every step of the way, you must make sure you have all your ducks in a row. Okay. And this is where Dr. Shayee will come in when she's outlining stuff for you.
All
So,
right.
so once you have your TDM, you've scaled through, they have scheduled you to start the assessment. We go into the third phase, which is the practice ready. And just before then, remember that before you start the practice ready, you have passed the TDM, they feel you are eligible to start the process based on ranking and all that. They will now refer you back to the college and say, we have this candidate, we feel she is a good match to start the assessment process. Please provide them with documentation to a temporary license for the assessment. So that's a slightly different stage in between. And then the college will reach back out to you. They will ask you to provide they will ask you to provide referees. And it's not, you don't decide who you want to provide. They will specify based on your CV, where you have worked, they will specify who. In my own scenario, they just asked for my medical director, two for my medical director from the last place I worked, and one from a colleague. In some I have seen, they specified the name of the person they want them to get it from, right? So, or maybe the CMAC or something. So they will ask you to provide that information. And this is where a lot of people have some challenges. Please always make sure if they're asking you to provide names of referees, you provide those who you are sure will be able to provide you with a reference, not somebody who has gone on a sabbatical somewhere and reaching. You understand what I mean? Because
Yeah,
once they have
yeah.
told you provide from this person, you cannot really switch back and say, no, I can't get from this. Can I get from someone else? It's going to be a tall order to change that that process. So always get a reference from someone who is available to provide that for you and in a timely manner. So once you're done with the college, and don't forget one more step is that you will still be required to provide documentation from Nigerian Medical and Dental Council with a letter of good standing. So whatever it is you are running from in Nigeria, you still need to pay them back their money and get your letter of good
Well,
standing.
that's if you're from Nigeria. Some people are from
Okay.
other countries. So
Yeah.
wherever you are practicing, make sure you're in good
They're
standing.
in good
That is
standing too.
saying. So
Right.
Dr. Toby, thank you, thank you. That was a very detailed breakdown. If I was applying to Nova Scotia, I would be sitting down with this video and listing out everything you have said again,
Okay.
and reviewing it. So basically, it's more like this application is in three parts: the initial part, and then the second part, and then the last part is the assessment, which is a clinical assessment, right?
Yeah.
Now, for your assessment, what's the duration of time of the assessment? If I think
So
it's 3 months, if I'm not mistaken.
the assessment is 3 months,
And is
and
it
it's broken into two halves of 6 weeks
okay?
each. Yeah.
All right, all right. Well, I think the very first thing is even getting this application all together, applying, and then getting called for this assessment, right? Which is the
Yeah.
final step. And when you pass your assessments, then you're given, the invitation to
Yeah.
work with this practice for this time. I have a
Yeah.
final question, Dr. Toby. Is there a return of service? Meaning,
Yeah.
after they give you this license to practice in this province, do you have to be here for a dedicated time?
Yeah, so there is always a return of service because the whole assessment process and the whole PRA process is actually sponsored by the Department of Health and Wellness.
I see.
And they do it in conjunction with all the different regions that need physicians. So each region is selected for a particular cohort. Just so you know, in Nova Scotia, they have two cohorts, March and September.
Okay.
So typically, originally, they take 5 per cohort.
Okay.
So you have a total of 10 at the end of the year, but I think they might be increasing that a bit. So each region gets to select a candidate who will come work for them. And there is a return of service contract signed for a minimum of 3 years.
Thank you. Thank you. That is very important to know. So when you're coming with an expectation of this minimum amount of time. And like Dr. Toby told us at the beginning, you might as well also think about retiring there, right? So this was great. This was to whet our appetite for the province of Nova Scotia, where in the last year, I know many people who have been accepted over there. I probably can count up to 6 on my fingertips, which is great. And Dr. Toby has been instrumental in guiding anybody who reaches out. And I say, oh, Dr. Toby, this person reached out, he's happy all the time to offer his pro bono services. I don't think I mentioned this earlier. I met Dr. Toby while volunteering at the Alberta International Medical Graduate Association. He was teaching the course, the evaluation exam at the time, as well as the QE1, and typically many Nigerians do not give back. That's a culture we're trying to change, and that's why we're here. So I was quite impressed after many years of being through IMGA and probably just knew one other Nigerian or two who had come back and volunteered their time. And I saw Dr. Toby doing this, so when he reached out to me, I was very happy to collaborate with him on so many things. We studied for exams together. Many times we are awake at night or early hours of the morning together, virtually, just, brainstorming what next is there to do, leaving no stone unturned. I think our plan B of going to the UK, we also started the process together, so everyone needs a support system on this journey. Dr. Toby, I'm glad you've been one of my support systems. Thank you so much for coming on here.
You're welcome.
To everybody who is watching, don't forget to like, share, subscribe to IMG Chronicles with Dr. Shayee. This information, as always, is needed. So please share. And I'm going to give it to Dr. Toby to tell us some parting message for today's episode.
Well, it was a wonderful time talking with you, Dr. Shayee, and it's been like, I can't believe it's been it's been a while since we studied and were preparing for exams. But for all viewers out there, I want you to understand that you do have support, and feel free to reach out to us anytime. And if you ask anybody in Nova Scotia, they know I am always willing and ready to help out. You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Toby, and thanks for watching, and have a great week, everyone. Enjoy your holiday if you're in Canada, and we look forward to seeing you next time on IMG Chronicles.
Kindly subscribe. Don't just watch it and walk away. Many need this information from all over the world who are interested in coming to Canada to work as doctors. So kindly share, like, subscribe, follow us on all of our social handles.